Hello, welcome back. Our guests this evening are Andy Giddings, the sports editor of BBC Radio Sheffield, and John Croot, Chesterfield FC director and inventor of walking football, which, aside from the sporting and recreational benefits that we discussed in part one, also has health benefits and maybe psychological benefits for, say, people who are suffering from depression.
Yeah,
you know?
and I mean any mental health issues. It's just people of any age as well, of course. But I think the benefit to it is that it when I speak to guys that play it, they say, well, it's actually as much about the social side of it. I know a lot of the senior Spireites now go to matches together and things like that, you know. I saw they've got a Facebook group, and I know not so long ago they went on a bike ride in the Peak District and that sort of thing. So it's not just that, it's what it leads to, which of course, you know, I'm CEO at the Community Trust at Chesterfield, and I mean that's exactly the sort of work which, in fairness, we should be doing, and all the Community Trusts do across the area, you know, Rotherham, Wednesday United.
Well, Andy's here, and he and I have been talking about the whole sporting scene. You know, they're both Sheffield clubs, and we're now going to talk about Chesterfield FC. Before we do, and you can take part in the conversation if you wish. I understand it's awkward. I understand it's painful. I mean, I'll just simply ask you first of all, just how it's been as somebody who's been on the board for 30 years and are such a long-standing supporter. How you've been feeling just lately, relegation from the Football League?
Well, it's been difficult. It has to be said, very, very difficult. You feel the pain. There's no two ways about it. You know, you feel the pain. People, you know, I think I feel it more than most because I've been a supporter all my life. But I don't think so. I think that if you're involved in the club, you feel the pain. The one thing that has been a credit to the club this season, though, without any shadow of doubt, has been the supporters. I think they've been absolutely tremendous. You know, going back to critical games like Grimsby away, filled the away end at Blundell Park. You know, and it felt very much like the fans turned up. Most of the players didn't. Not all the players, you know, but a lot of them just. And down at, you know, Forest Green. Long journey down there, turning out in numbers again, and at Barnet, you know, 8 points adrift, bottom of the Football League, filled the away end at Barnet, never stopped singing from start to finish. I think they've been a credit to the club, quite frankly.
Probably the only credit.
The only
in this season.
Plus that's come out of this season. It certainly feels like that.
Yeah. You've connected quite a lot of eras, and you've seen the ups and downs, haven't you?
Yeah.
You're the one constant, really, on the board. You've seen owners and chairmen come and go, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
Such a long time. Can you be philosophical about the cycle of football? We all know about the cycle of football, but usually it's shuttling between the bottom two divisions in Chesterfield's case, and in one memorable case, in a couple actually, knocking on the door of what is now the Championship. But you can't have foreseen anything like this, I imagine.
No, nobody did. No, you couldn't have foreseen what would happen, and the injuries as well to key experienced players. You know, Everett, Hurd, and everybody forgets at the moment Tommy Lee, of course, who finished, you know, at the start of this season. So it's a position that I never thought I'd see, but what we've got to do is battle on. We've got to make the right moves now moving forward. There's clearly been mistakes at the club. That's clear for all to see. And it's about sorting it out. And because Chesterfield Football Club is far bigger than just a football club. It's you know, it's part of the town. It's part of the town where I've been brought up and lived, and I was a programme seller, and it means more than that. And it's we've just got to regroup, haven't we, and sort it out. And I'm sure we will. As you say, there are cycles. You know, I think I'm right in saying we've won the fourth tier of English football more times than any other club, and that shows really how we've sort of bounced between the two. It's sort of 60 years. This is what, 3 generations since we've had championship equivalent football. I think that's the one thing I would very much like to see. But you know, first of all, we've got to build from the base that we're at now. And then, of course, you remember the good days, and we've got to make sure the good days come back, you know. It's easy to forget we were, what, 12 minutes from the cup final?
Well, none of us, that 1997 will just remain a memory for forever, you know, and it's so distant. I mean, it's actually only 20 years ago, 21 years ago, but it seems like light years now, doesn't it? From,
yeah.
You know, but
I mean, one of the things which, you know, I've thought about quite a bit over the last couple of months, really, is that in 2001, with the Darren Brown era, I was involved with others in CFSS, the Supporters Trust, and quite frankly, I got the club thrown at me with, I think it was 12 hours to go. We were due in court soon after, and it was to close it down. It wasn't nothing else, it was to close it down. So, you know, a few times this season I've thought, well, actually, you know, 2001, we were hours from being closed down. We're now in a fantastic stadium, and it just shows what you can do, really. Yeah,
well, whatever his critics, the one thing Dave Allen will constantly fund it and has done. You look across football and the number of chairmen who've simply gone, oh, we'll sink it, put it into administration. He's now, I know that it goes totally against his principles as a businessman to do anything like that.
Dave Allen has put more money into Chesterfield Football Club than I ever thought I would see anybody put in, to be honest. For whatever else has gone wrong or whatever, the one thing is that Dave has funded things right through, and you know, he's not the only one, but there have been others, but Dave has been the one, really. We certainly won't be in a new stadium on Whittington Moor without him.
Open to a takeover, lots of rumours. I don't know if you can update. Is anything moving on that front?
There are different groups that have sort of come forward. Ashley Carson's dealing with it, with Dave. So I tend to, I think I've sort of got an agreement with Ashley, really, that when somebody comes up with the money and things, then he'll probably let us know. Until then, not just this time, but previous times with football, you know, people come on the scene and drift away, and I've seen it times many, really. You know, back in, as I say, 2001. When we had all sorts of guys trying to take over then. I think one was Saddam Hussein's best pal, he claimed to be. It's not a Christmas card list I'd want to be on, but...
No, let's not go there. Come back to you. Well, there's a manager search going on at the moment. Andy and I have got our thoughts on that. We're going to come to that subject. Anything you can chip in on that would be, but I recognise you would be gratefully received, but I recognise the difficulty of your position. Andy, before we come to that, Jos Lukai at Sheffield Wednesday would seem to have got his feet firmly under the table. And the speed at which announcements and decisions have been taken this summer, even before the season ended, a good sign for me. What about you?
Always a good sign. On Wednesday, like under Mr. Chansiri, generally they've, well, perhaps been forced, but they've done a lot of their transfer dealings later in the window. Even the appointment of Carlos Cavalial was relatively late in the summer after the various different things that they were trying to do there. So the fact that there is seemingly a bit of prior planning, it gave an opportunity for an honourable send-off to Glenn Louvens, who deserved one after what he'd achieved, if you like, with Sheffield Wednesday over the course of the period of time that he was there. He's going to need replacing. That is, in terms of his personality and his status in the dressing room, that's a big loss. I perhaps would, you know, say that maybe his legs are gone, and some of the goals that were conceded suggested that new blood was required, and obviously that's going to come now. And Ross Wallace too, who did an exceptional job, probably still was Wednesday's best crosser of the ball, but at the wrong side of 32, 33. Yeah. So his better days, it would appear, are behind him. And then, yeah, thoughts now for the future. The fact that quick decisions are being made, I think, with any football club is exceptionally encouraging, because A, it's the weight that gets everybody anxious, and B, and agents don't help, and the wheels that turn in football don't help. But I would always take the view, broad brush view. Managers and coaches that get the vast majority of their squad in for pre-season will generally have a better chance.
Yeah. Further to that, of course, the window closes earlier. Next season
which
closes
is great.
as the kickoff, which is great for everybody.
If only they'd close it properly.
Yeah.
However,
Slam it shut.
That's a different show.
Before a ball is kicked. Yeah. Do you know, I think I got it wrong in mid-season, or certainly when it was going wrong. I thought a big overhaul was needed at Sheffield Wednesday. Now, between them, Lukai and the players, and not least some of the younger players coming in, have convinced me that the overhaul doesn't need to be as big as I thought it would have to be at one time.
No, it probably isn't quite as severe. Some of the younger players that have come in have done manful jobs, but with Sheffield Wednesday under Mr. Chansiri, and because of the investment that he can put into a football team, the question with Sheffield Wednesday should always be now, while they're in this situation, is are the players that we have not just good enough to be all right? Are they going to be good enough to get the team into the playoffs at least? And they're the questions clearly that they're going to answer. So in a team that's struggled / ultimately meandered and then finished well, some of the kids have looked all right. And I, for one, would be a massive advocate of seeing more and more younger players come into the game from the local areas from which they are, from Sheffield, obviously, Chesterfield and wherever else. I think the biggest issue still at Sheffield Wednesday is moving on the expensive players who, for whatever reason, injury, loss of form, can they do that? Yeah. And there are 3 or 4 of those. And the names are one. Yeah, Abdi. Look, Abdi, he played against Sheffield Wednesday for Watford, and then went on to play 38 times in the Premier League and was brilliant. Yeah. At Sheffield Wednesday,
it hasn't happened. You could argue the same with Jordan Rhodes. Is it going to happen there? Will they persevere? Cut losses, accept a smaller fee, send him out on loan. You'd have to subsidise a loan. Nobody's going to pick up the whole wages.
Yeah, and it's easy for us to speak in those ways because it's not our responsibility to move them on. I accept clearly that somebody of Jordan Rhodes' wages, if Josh Lukai and Mr. Chansiri and the club wanted to move him on, it would be exceptionally difficult because he has not shown in any way that the Jordan Rhodes that we know, the free-scoring Jordan Rhodes. And look, there's a degree of honesty in that.
Not to say he can't do it.
Of course, not at all. And not to say he can't do it at Sheffield Wednesday. Sometimes it just doesn't fit.
No, well,
and it's a skewed logic, but that's just the way it can be sometimes.
We'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens. Sorry.
I was saying Mark Richards springs to mind at Chesterfield.
Brilliant goal scorer. Just didn't work.
Absolutely, didn't happen there, did it? And I'd seen him play at other clubs like Northampton, for instance, looked terrific. Port Vale.
Port Vale.
Loads and loads of goals, and it didn't happen.
Tom Pope's another one at Rotherham that scored loads of goals for Port Vale. Brilliant for them.
O'Grady. Everybody lauded the signing of Chris O'Grady, including me, even though he's not a prolific goal scorer. It hasn't happened for whatever reason. What will happen is a new manager fairly shortly. What's the timescale on that from your perspective? When do you think that might be announced?
I think we're all really agreed that it needs to be sooner rather than later. I think that's where we are with it. The process is underway, and we're just keen to get it sorted and get some stability, I think, really.
Yeah, when do you think, in a couple of days, 3 days, before the weekend, or what?
I'm not sure at this moment in time, but I would have thought, I don't know for sure, I wouldn't like to promise, but next week, maybe sometime, I would have thought.
Has you're not going to talk some names to me, I know, but has a decision been made? Have you identified a top target between you, somebody that you'd want?
There are a number of people that are of interest.
Still?
Yep, still.
Still to be decided. Yeah, despite what the bookies try.
Well, I don't know what they're saying. Yeah.
Well, at the moment they're saying it's Martin Allen, and look, maybe I suspect strongly he is a person of interest. But if we were to club together,
he left Barnet today.
He did leave Barnet today. Yeah. If we were to club together, we might change somebody's odds, admittedly the longer ones, and move them a little bit up the chart. But That's always the.
It's a precarious game following odds.
Course,
you know, they can mislead. But like you, and I'm guessing here because I haven't got any information on it, I would suspect that Martin Allen is in the leading group, if not the leading one. I'll give my thoughts on what I think about that. What do you think?
On Martin Allen?
Yeah.
Experienced coach. Certainly someone who gives the impression of being a rabble-rouser. Over the recent past, and this may be not his fault at all, is he a short-term man for a club that's needing a rebuild?
That's precisely. Do you know, I would have said the same thing.
And look, if he's not, whether it's for his own personal circumstances, then great, because he's achieved success in his career.
Somebody of his ilk would have been ideal in each of the last 2 seasons when there was a relegation battle and a managerial change. You know, I've pushed for Ronnie Moore. It didn't have to be him. It just happens to be somebody that I know well, and as you do, and we've got great respect for his
100%.
ability as an impact man, but he can also build something.
Yeah, I personally would speak to Ronnie Moore if I was the Chesterfield hierarchy. And yes, I do know him, and yes, he is working for Radio Sheffield this weekend. But his talents as a manager have been there for all to see. Not just clearly.
I'm not even sure that he's been spoken to, which I find astonishing.
Tranmere Rovers, the success that he enjoyed there. You know. Eastleigh, I think most people realise that the problems at Eastleigh are not necessarily going to start and end with the manager. So. He's done a very good job. Look, if Dave Allen and Ashley Carson don't think that it's Ronnie Moore, and we don't know, then that's up to them. But it'd be somebody I would push for.
It would puzzle me not to seriously consider him.
And I do think.
Sorry about this.
With great respect to younger coaches, because again, as a sweeping statement, I would always advocate younger coaches coming into the game, at whichever level you wish. I just think in this case with Chesterfield right now, an experienced head is the way to go.
Yeah, and I think with Martin Allen, yes, an impact man would have been ideal in the League One relegation fighting season, ideal in the League Two relegation fighting season. You have to question, he can make an impact and build things, light fires. I would question, can he sustain it? Because he's had, in 14 odd years, he must have had almost as many jobs. So he's never stayed anywhere for very long. Can he maintain that impact? Was the only question. He ticks the box for experience.
Yeah.
He ticks the box as a big personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but the club will need, if it is to be him, and we're having this conversation because he's the bookies' favourite at the moment, then what's the plan from their perspective with him? Because for all of the talk about the player sales previously when Chesterfield were having a push for the championship, and then the downgrading of the squad and the lessening of the budget, and indeed the lessening of the budget as the team drops out of the Football League, which is A, understandable, and B, I dare say, to a large extent necessary. Who's to say that, given what we're talking about before, the team start reasonably well and Dave Allen just goes, well, there's a few more pounds, let's have a real good go at this year.
Yeah, I've no doubt that Dave Allen is intent on giving it a good go, and I've no doubt that that is one area that I can ask you about. The rest of it on the manager, you've only got to look at social media. Andy and I are just talking opinions on that, throwing them out there. I know you're not going to comment on that, but you sense, Dave Allen. You sense a man there that's obviously bruised by what's happened, but still defiant and determined.
We all are. Yeah. As I say, the thing now is about rebuilding. Dave Allen, whilst he is owner of the club, I've no doubt he will give as much support as he possibly can, and as he has done so far, really. But we'll see. We'll see. But it is about rebuilding, and as you say, it's to be remembered that Dave Allen has already put substantial funds in. As I said earlier, money I thought I would never see put into Chesterfield.
Fans will look at that and go, though, as they will with any football club, as an owner / steward of a football club, it then becomes the responsibility of the owner to keep putting that money in.
Doing it
essentially.
And they're unforgiving. Okay,
Yeah,
but as John has admitted, bad decisions have been made.
Yeah.
You know, and people are rightly critical of that. But you can't criticise somebody. How can you tell a man who's put that level of money in to keep putting his hands in his pocket and
that's the
shouting
difficulty. I mean, Chris Turner, for years before we got to this stage, was saying that Chesterfield would be bankrupt were it not for the money that Dave Allen has propped the club up with. And there wouldn't have been the standard of team that was generated under Paul Cook had it not have been for the wages. Look, I dare say even something that we don't think about very often, the bonuses, the win bonuses for the team that got promoted from League Two must have been, in the real world terms, a massive amount of money.
Yeah.
It's things like that that people like Dave and Mr. Chansiri, etc., have to foot the bill for.
Yeah, they do. And you've only got to look at Huddersfield, you know, congratulations to them. What a fantastic feat, David Wagner and the club staying in the Premier League, having won that promotion. But more than that, you know, the guy at the top, Dean Hoyle, I remember listening to a radio interview, local radio interview, maybe 3-4 years ago, driving back from a game where he was at his wit's end about the abuse he was getting and was saying, look, I can't take much more of this. If this carries on, I'm going to have to walk away. What a turnaround.
Brilliant. Yeah. What they've done is just tremendous. And there's going to be a lot of chairmen who will look at Huddersfield and go, can we do that? But they will conveniently forget, and this is probably just because I'm a Halifax Town fan talking about club sizes. Huddersfield, when they're doing moderately well, get about 17,000. Yeah. That's not small. No. They are in every other sense, and I'm not decrying the achievement. Certainly in Premier League terms of the money.
Bournemouth there, and other clubs with small. Wigan have been in the Premier League with smaller support. Burnley.
But it's the benefit. It's the benefactor
Town
model,
of 78,000, Burnley.
Remarkable.
Yeah, it's the benefactor model, though, isn't it? Yeah, in Europe. What a contrast.
And not everybody can be a winner. You know, in terms of what's needed, we talked about Sheffield Wednesday and maybe requirements in the summer. Certainly pace. I think we'd agree on that is needed. Sheffield United. Maybe not an awful lot required in numbers, but what would you be going for, Andy?
Well, firstly, they need to look at the striking department. Ched Evans has had his fitness issues this year. If they resurrect themselves, then he may well become an option next year. It's a personal point of view, but I'm sceptical about that. James Wilson will go back to Manchester United. Hasn't been good enough.
No.
Is there better out there than Clayton Donaldson? And then you're talking about ins, a couple of strikers. Chris has said quite a lot recently about both boxes sent. So then a couple of strikers. You look at the other end of the pitch, somebody in addition to Stearman who perhaps has that extra defensive nous when they need it. That said, Chris Basham and Jack O'Connell, I think, have been fantastic this year. Yeah. I personally, again, would like to see a bit more competition for Enda Stevens on the left. On the right-hand side, it's there in abundance, clearly with Baldock. Yes. And Freeman, and they may well have to think about a goalkeeper. Now, ideal world, Chelsea will let Blackman come back because he's been fantastic. They need to decide what they're going to do with Simon Moore in a contract if they want to keep him going forward. I mean, he'll still be under contract, but whether they offer him a new one. So it's not many in numbers, you're quite right, but it's probably significant in terms of ability.
Okay, Andy, well, that just brings us to the end of our hour, or nearly an hour. Poor old James Gregg didn't make it in the end. We were in touch on the mobile phone. He's got stuck in traffic coming back from Manchester on the Snake somewhere. But it's been wonderful to see both of you. This is repeated on my YouTube channel and on Sheffield Live TV at 11. John Croot, thanks so much. Heartfelt words about Chesterfield and walking football. Andy Giddings. And see you for another show next week. See you. Bye-bye.